I tell that story because this is so much associated with what a pivot could look
Yeah.
like for companies, which is you may know your customer needs your solution or your prospect needs your solution, but if you don't speak to them in their language or tell them what they want to hear about your solution, and I don't mean making things up, I mean frame it in a way that they understand
Yeah.
and can be and resonate with, then your pivot's not going to be successful.
Hi there. This is Vijay Damojipurapu, and you're listening to the B2B Go-To-Market Leaders Podcast. The show where I go behind the scenes with top go-to-market practitioners to discuss their mindset and tactics. Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for listening to the B2B Go-To-Market Leaders Podcast. Today, I have with me yet another amazing guest. She is Holly Roland, exec at SAP, Oracle, and now she founded her own company in the go-to-market advisory and consulting space. So we'll dive more into that. So that context, welcome to the show, Holly.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Yeah, you get to see how this conversation unfolds as we go deeper and deeper into our favorite subject, go-to-market. So with that, I always open the show with this signature question, which the listeners enjoy and love. Question to you is, how do you view and define go-to-market?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So my firm specializes in B2B go-to-market, but I also teach AI plus go-to-market at Stanford. And what I've learned is actually really helpful for defining go-to-market is to make it in its most basic form. So in general, the go-to-market, the way that you can think about go-to-market is that there's a discovery loop that hopefully leads to purchase, and then there's a value loop that leads to expanded deals or cross sells and advocacy by whoever you're selling to.
Mhm.
So in the most basic sense, it's that infinity loop. If you think about how buyers typically go through a process of understanding what their problem is, becoming aware of solutions, getting value, and then hopefully buying more or additional technology from you. And when it comes to B2B in particular, I always try to emphasize, especially to early stage founders, that they need to think of their company as the solution, not just whatever the technology or product that they're selling as the solution, because
Mhm.
it really involves customer-facing aspects of the product,
Yep.
the marketing team, sales, and customer success. When I think of go-to-market, it's all of those critical functions that are beyond the core development of the product.
Very cool. I think you pretty much hit all the checklist items in there. I love the way you framed it, which is the discovery loop and the value loop. So that way, for anyone who's even remotely familiar with go-to-market and funnel stages, you're essentially covering the entire, not
Yes.
just from awareness to sale, but even post-sale.
Mm-hmm.
That's a gap that I see in some of the go-to-market leaders and practitioners. And you also hit upon a very crucial part in the second part of your how you see go-to-market, which is essentially it involves all the functions, the critical functions of a company,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yes, there is product development, but then there's marketing, there's sales, there's post-sale, customer success, support. Those are
Yes.
all critical pieces of the puzzle, if you will.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think most B2B companies aren't great at the upsell or the value loop because they really tend to focus on the new logo acquisition. And that's one of my topics I'm passionate about with go-to-market is that, you need to pay equal attention to the value loop because it's actually cheaper to sell to existing customers as opposed to finding new ones.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we can carve out an entire podcast just on that one topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll come
Love
on
it.
a second time and we can do that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. So, with that as a context, so let's step back. It'll be great if you can share with our listeners your career journey all the way from day one of your education or career to what led you to what you're doing today?
Sure. Well, so it's interesting. I won't give you a blow by blow because that would also take a whole hour, but I actually started my career as a CPA.
Mm,
For people who don't know, that's certified public accountant. And I was working for a CPA firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And my deal was, at the time, I was always very much focused on wanting to work with startup companies or to do a startup company.
okay.
So my deal was that I had to do audit and tax work during the busy season, but the rest of the year I got to work on emerging company services. So
Nice.
that was a great foundation for me after university to really understand how business operates, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to money,
Yeah.
and whether you're making it or not. But after that, I knew I didn't want to be a CPA, so I had a great mentor who helped me get into tech. And so I've had, starting with product management and then moving into marketing and strategy and ultimately go to market. I've had careers that have spanned, as you said, Oracle, SAP, Hyperion before it was acquired by Oracle, and a number of startup companies in between. And though I started in the product management side of things, I really found that the go-to-market, that whole process, was of greater interest to me,
Hmm.
and have spent my career doing that. Then about 8 years ago, I had gone to Oracle a second time and realized that, I was not necessarily wanting to continue in a really large enterprise, and really wanted to work with startups. And so I founded my company, Rebel GTM. And honestly, I kind of thought that it would be sort of a project here and there and a lot of downtime, but I ended up being crazy busy.
Hmm.
Um, I got connected with a lot of VC firms in the Valley, and worked with a ton of startups, helping them either establish go-to-market operations from zero, or when they were ready for a scale-up period, then helping them to grow the company and establish the right framework for that. So, and interestingly enough, during the COVID period, I was actually one of the most busy periods of my company's career,
Hmm.
or tenure. And then, of course, the market has completely changed in the past couple of years,
Yeah.
where with AI native startups, as well as the Silicon Valley Bank crash,
Hmm.
really impacting, how VCs are investing and how companies are built.
Yeah.
It's become a really different market, but yeah, it's been a fantastic ride, and I'm very happy that I'm doing this. I really enjoy it.
Wow. No, great journey. Like, who would imagine someone starting as a CPA and
Right.
ending up as a go-to-market exec and a
Mhm.
go-to-market company founder, right? So, this is what I tell a lot of the younger folks. It's like your career, you only have so much visibility, right? Only for the next couple of years or few years. And
Mhm.
it's not like whatever path you went down or started is where you'll end up, right?
Right.
No one knows how it's going to unfold. And looking at your amazing career and inflections or transitions, I'd love to go into some of the double click in some of the transitions that you made, Holly.
Mhm.
So specifically, I think you covered the first point, which is like CPA at PricewaterhouseCoopers and how you managed and how you negated and essentially how you transitioned into tech industry. That was very clear. And then what got you into product marketing and go to market, or what attracted you into that?
Oh, so yeah, that's a really interesting question. So obviously as a CPA, I was very immersed in how financial accounting works and controls over information and um, that sort of thing. And so
Yeah.
when I went to Oracle, I was in the financial applications team and specifically working on general ledger.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, product marketing or product management at Oracle um, also did the product marketing.
Mm,
And so while I really enjoyed, designing new capabilities for the applications,
yeah.
um, I found that I had a special talent in the marketing side and writing, for example, really exciting copy about how our um, features were helpful to customers and
Yeah.
how the sales team could really convey the value
Mm-hmm.
of what we were doing from a tech perspective into what the customers cared about. So marketing, product marketing was not at all on my radar when I went there. And I just found that it was something that I was especially good at. And um, so it ended up sort of gravitating toward first marketing and then the whole go-to-market cycle after that. And that's how the transition happened.
Yeah, so I have a similar story as well. So after my MBA, I took the natural path into the tech industry, which is like product management.
Mm,
And I did that for a couple of years. And by, I don't recall whatever or how I transitioned into product marketing, but product marketing at Microsoft. And while doing that, that actually lit some fire within me. And that's the
mm,
piece that I started enjoying, right? I started realizing that I enjoy more of the taking the product to the market versus
mm-hmm,
building the product,
mm-hmm.
right? And to your point, I mean, very similar beliefs and passion areas around product marketing and go to market is storytelling. That's critical.
Yeah.
Really understanding the market, understanding the buyer, and even working with sellers and enabling the sellers
Mm-hmm,
is something that really attracted me. And then how do you tell a story in different formats, writing versus video versus short form versus long form,
mm-hmm.
and across time horizon, right? So
Yes.
it's very interesting. I mean, for those listeners, if you are wondering if product marketing or go to market is something that you want to pursue, or maybe that's a path you're liking, I just wanted to put it out there. And yeah, it's this more for the listeners. Like take nuggets from Holly or even from my story so far, and maybe that's a path for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually think in particular, um, marketing is very important, and I'll say in tech companies often really underappreciated
Mhm.
because it's a critical piece of the puzzle. But I have found that for me, the go-to-market scope is particularly exciting because, like we said before, you have to make sure that everyone's sort of singing from the same songbook.
Yeah.
And that's the songbook established by marketing. So, but it really helps, especially for a company in its early stages and all, frankly, for later stages too. If everyone's really understanding the core of the marketing strategy and how that focuses the company, that
Hmm.
really helps the company to gain momentum in a market so that it can use that as a leverage point for even bigger growth down the road. So yeah, go to market is a fantastic place to be and growing.
Yeah. So talking about growing, looking at your amazing career ride and journey you had at large companies like SAP and Oracle, a lot of mid-level folks or even younger to mid-level folks, they get stuck in individual contributor roles, even
Mm,
product marketing or go-to-market roles. But you had a good ride going up. So
mm.
what was your playbook and what advice would you give to the listeners who are looking at that part of the journey?
Interesting. How did I do that? I think number one, any sort of job that I do, I always try to go at it at 110%.
Yeah.
Um, and managers appreciate passion, right? They appreciate people who are excited about what they're doing and are showing up with new ideas and making things operate in a way that better than they were before. So I think that made me stand out to some degree because I was just very passionate about making things effective
Yeah.
and doing well. Um, the other thing I'll say that I honestly didn't appreciate very much early on was that you need to be inclusive and collaborative with other people because the people who really go up the ladder, so to speak,
Yeah.
are well liked by other people
Hmm.
in the organization. And that's Especially true we have a big mix of generations in companies right now, from the
Yeah.
boomers down to Gen Z.
Right.
And, you know, in the old days in the tech world, it was sort of whoever seemed the smartest was the one that would get to the top. But that's really not the case anymore. It's more that you need to value everybody's contributions and inspire them
Mm.
to contribute more and to um uh what's the word I'm looking for, to uh get excited about the mission.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I didn't appreciate that as much early on. But I really understand that if you are winning, you're going to attract other people by winning to that winning.
Yeah. I love the last point that you made, Holly, which is how to work with and pull the cross-generational folks, not
Mhm,
just your peer demographics. I think it's again going back to how do you work across people from different backgrounds is one
mhm,
thing, and how do you work across or with people coming from different experiences,
mhm,
industries,
mhm,
age group, right? I mean, if two people are looking at the same scene, cinematic scene, for example, each one will interpret it differently.
mhm.
So really understanding that nuances and trying to influence is very critical.
Yeah, I don't know have you heard of design thinking
Yeah.
or design? Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, a lot of education now is kind of built around that. And um, what you reminded me of was, in design thinking, you bring together people who wouldn't normally be in the same room
Hmm.
to design a product or system, and you come up with something better. And so, yeah, your thoughts about different perspectives on the same situation is so valuable.
Absolutely. So coming to Rebel GTM, I think you just about touched the surface on how you got started. So let's go deeper into that. Like, what led you to starting that at that specific point in time? And then who do you serve? Like, how did the organization evolve to what you're doing today?
Sure. So, the way that it got started was, yeah, as I said, I had done a second stint at Oracle. I had been asked to do a transformation of the product management and product marketing organization,
Hmm.
and really help them to have a bigger voice in the company. And that had been successful. But I found that the challenge of, I guess I'm at the end of the day, I'm really just attracted to innovation and new
Mm.
things and new technologies.
Yeah.
And I found that that type of an activity be very, very challenging within the context of a larger organization.
Hmm.
And so I knew I was passionate about that, innovation and technology and where it's going. And I wanted to work with startups, but you know, my level of expertise would not necessarily match what their needs were at that particular time from a full-time, employee perspective.
Yeah.
And so I had the thought of, I really like working on a lot of different projects at the same time. So why don't I do sort of a fractional approach
Hmm.
to different organizations and, like I said, help them with go-to-market. So that's how it started. Um, and at the time, I was really focused more on the marketing aspect of things. I found, though, that I could do really fantastic marketing and pull in new leads and establish a brand awareness, and all the other great things that marketing should do.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of upstream problems with product or downstream with sales and customer success that
Hmm.
was disconnected. And so I started to realize that that silo wasn't, it was helpful in the sense that it had, the company had more awareness, but unless the rest of the organization was really tied into what we were trying to accomplish, then it wasn't going to be, the success would be limited.
Yeah.
So that's when I made the shift to, I really should think more broadly about this problem and pull in people who are experts in the other parts of sales in particular, to expand the value proposition to organizations. So that's how it evolved into the go-to-market. And then the Rebel piece just came about because we're a big Star Wars family.
Hmm.
And so there was, of course, the sort of Star Wars type
Yeah.
thinking happening, but I also heard that song by David Bowie, Rebel Rebel. And I
Oh,
thought,
I've never
that's a
heard of that.
perfect,
Okay.
yeah, that's a perfect song and perfectly encapsulates, the rebel idea sort of encapsulates that startups are
Yeah.
rebels to some extent,
Yeah.
trying to do different things in the world. So it just seemed to fit.
Yeah. So the brand market person or the persona within you led
Hmm.
you to going down this path. So it's very interesting. Again, I think it's amazing where I think this is the first time each of us we're talking. We
Hmm.
never met in person or talked before, but the more you reveal your journey, Holly, especially around Rebel and how you started Rebel and how the scope expanded from just pure product marketing to go to market, it's the similar story that I have with my company, which is Stratev.
Hmm.
Exactly the same story, which is how do I bring product marketing to the wider world? And that, as I started working with organizations all the way from early stage to mid and large organizations, that opened my eyes and gave me data points into I think there is a role and a need to expand and go beyond product marketing,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And very similar to yours, right? Even for me, I worked in product management. I worked as a product manager, and I worked with product marketing and different functions within marketing and post sales. And I'm seeing gaps in organizations.
Yes.
And that's why, again, this podcast name is B2B Go to Market for a reason, and for that very reason, which is go to market is just not purely product marketing centric. It's much more than that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. But yes, I mean, if you're a strategic product marketer, you would start at that level. But if you were to make an impact at an organizational level, you have to expand your horizon.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that.
Yeah, very cool. So let's talk about what you're doing at Stanford. How did you get down or go down that path? And what do you do at Stanford?
So, yeah, so to recap, I in the continuing studies program, I teach it has a very long title, but it boils down to AI plus go to market. And what had happened is that I had taken some courses from um, another person who teaches there, and it was more about AI analytics because that was the area that was the most abstract to me at the time. I really didn't understand how it engaged with data and um, pulled together, insights or recognized patterns or whatever. So I took
Yeah.
a couple of his courses, and then I ended up taking a stats course because I hadn't
Hmm.
had that since university. And I just happened to see that Stanford was accepting new proposals. So because I had taken those other courses, I could piece together how AI would become really valuable to the go-to-market function specifically.
Yeah.
So I proposed a course. Honestly, it took a couple hours one afternoon, said, hey, this would be a great course. And they accepted it. So I'm now teaching, at least at Stanford, it's my second time around. But I've also taken a lot of that same material and taught at incubators and other types
Hmm.
of forums. And I'm getting asked about that more and more, which is great. So so yeah, I got accepted. I think sort of May of last year, and I realized as I was starting to develop the program that it was going to be a lot of work. And
Hmm.
so literally it took me from May timeframe all the way through. I think my class started in uh, September or October. I was working through it for that whole
Yeah.
period on developing the class. And
Yeah.
I will let people know if you're thinking about it, just be prepared for really hard work because it's a lot more work than you think.
Yeah.
But I think it's been fantastic because A, it's helped me to understand AI in much greater depth and how it impacts go-to-market. So for me,
Hmm.
it's been really useful. But also the way you communicate to people about really technical topics. And, I'm particularly really passionate about helping people not be afraid of AI because there's so
Hmm.
much negative or dramatic press about the impact of it. And so I want people to be prepared in their organizations to have insightful conversations about it and understand where the boundaries are of what it can and can't do.
Hmm.
And I've learned a lot about, even though I've been in customer facing roles for a long time, I have learned a lot in the past year about how to better communicate with people about technology.
Yeah.
Because there's, if you're with, it's an 8-week course. And so when you're with people repeatedly for 8 weeks, you start to learn better what hits and what doesn't.
Right.
So it's been a journey, but that's how I started. And I'll be doing it again in the fall.
Very cool. So for those of you listeners who are interested in, definitely check out the AI and go-to-market course that Holly is teaching. That's what I would suggest. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
called Business 143. So that's the easiest way to look it up.
yeah, just based on the last 30 minutes chat that we had, Holly, I can clearly see the value that you would bring to your students. I think there's a wide go-to-market lens across all functions, across different company stages. And then there is the AI piece, which even though it's been around for 5 to 6 years or so now, it's still evolving at a very rapid pace. So how do you tie the AI piece into the different aspects of the go-to-market roles and functions is a critical skill for
Hmm.
anyone. I mean, not just go-to-market folks, but even product folks. It's super cool.
Yes. Yep. Right. And that's why I went back to that really basic view of what the go-to-market process is to make it, so rather than getting the ideas complicated in whether it was a B2C or B2B use
Yeah.
case, it became more about, okay, how do you identify the group of people and companies that you want to go after? How can you use analytics for really effective segmentation, as an
Yeah.
example? And then as you move through this cycle, how do you improve your discoverability of your company?
Nice.
Especially using generative engine optimization. And then how do you use AI to create even better content than you could before that really speaks to the mindset of the people that you're trying to influence. And then it moves into more operational concerns, like how can you use agents to be more effective in go-to-market and that kind of a thing. So yeah, it really forced me to not be thinking at 30,000 feet, but on feet on the ground, boots on the ground. How do people really have practical ways of getting to um, just better go to market and growing the company?
Yeah, very cool. I think that's a second topic we can cover in a podcast. I think, yeah, first one was around entire life cycle of a customer, and then second is around AI and GTM, but we'll save that for a later date. Coming to a different angle, but even going down deeper into go-to-market, across your, maybe it's from your recent experience or something, it'll be great if you can share a go-to-market success story and a go-to-market failure slash pivot story. And I'll let you choose which one you want to start with, Holly.
I think I'll start with a success story. And I'll come back to what I call GEO, which is generative engine optimization. And it's so interesting. I've been having a lot of very intense conversations about this topic in the past couple of weeks. And I say that's interesting because I actually back in December, January was starting to really grasp this topic at a deeper level for my business.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't understand why this wasn't on the radar of more companies the geo practice or approach, and I'll explain it in a little bit, is really fundamentally changing how we can communicate with the market, whether that's customers or other people who have an interest in our business. And so we were I was engaged by a client to help them with their geo strategy. And so we, of course, started with an audit to assess what their geo readiness was. And I guess I should probably explain what that means. So geo is the practice of ensuring that your digital presence, primarily the website, but other places too, is communicating with LLMs in an effective way, such that the LLMs will trust that information about your company and use it when buyers are asking questions.
Yeah.
So most buyers now for technology or business solutions will do research in ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity and the way that they view information is very different than SEO. So this is not this is not SEO version
Right.
2.0. This
Yeah.
is a completely different animal. And why I'm excited about it is that it fundamentally means that you can, well, here's what we did with the client. What we did with the client was help them to understand that no, they did not have to rewrite their whole website. We did an audit and I determined where the gaps were from a content coverage perspective, but also a competitive perspective.
Yeah.
And there were some technological things to address too, but they wanted to really focus on those two areas first, which I agree with. And then help them to deploy a technology that effectively does what I call a shadow site. And a shadow site is effectively, it takes your website information, but also any other internal information that you give it, whether that's videos or user guides or white
Yeah.
papers or whatever, and automatically creates all the information or the vast majority of information that an LLM would want to know about your company. And can answer questions, therefore answer questions at a much deeper level than you could have with a website, right? Websites are by definition kind of limited because you're, trying to set up for a brand as opposed to answering specific, really deep user questions.
Right.
So what they didn't realize, but through our process, is that they could get to geo readiness, or at least a higher degree of that, much more quickly and less expensively than they could before. Then we actually put an AI agent on the website on every page. And what buyers can do if they actually land on the website from an LLM is they're asked even deeper questions about
Yeah.
anything to do with the solution. And so that was a big success for them because they were anticipating a really long process, really expensive process of redoing the whole website. And they were relieved not to have to do that. And I think that this practice is going to fundamentally change how we even think about our digital presence going forward. So that was a great success story.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, a lot of learnings and insights that you shared there, Holly. I think one is for whichever brands or whichever companies are considering to invest and go down the geo path, which you should. I mean, it's high time. It's already late if you're not investing in that. I think one takeaway for me from what you shared is it need not be an extensive, elaborate process, is what I'm sensing. It's potentially maybe what few weeks or maybe a couple of months of effort is my guess based on what you shared.
Yeah, it depends on the company for sure, and what they're trying to, how much gaps that they have in their content. But the fact that you can use what marketers at least would not consider information you want to put out the public,
Yeah.
you can use that now in a way that is, I guess, safe and doesn't impact the brand, I think is really important. And yeah, I agree with you. I think that this should be a much bigger topic in the market than that it is so far. But like I said, I've had so many conversations recently, I feel like it's coming to the fore.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how did you measure the impact? Like, what are the metrics that you're showing to your clients that this is or not, or this is not working? Like, what are the trends that you're tracking?
Well, both my audit software as well as this shadow site company, it's called SalesSpeak. They both show scores associated with overall GEO readiness, but then they'll show a comparison against competitors. They'll show a comparison against the buyer questions that are being asked,
Yeah.
and technical gaps, and things of that nature. So there's actually about 6 or 7 scores, but the overall score is the GEO score. And so we could show that they were at like a 33% readiness previously. And within just a few weeks, they got up to like a 78% readiness. And then they're continuing to progress. And I think it's important for people to understand that you may never get to 100% because the market changes and your solution changes and buyer questions and the way they think of these things changes. And so 100% might not ever be achievable, but getting up into the 70, 80, 90, that's successful.
Very cool. And then even at 70 or 80% readiness level will potentially translate to eventually like hand raisers or contact sales, right? That'll be the downstream effect of being visible now.
Yeah, in fact, there are studies that even though right now the traffic between, if you compare SEO traffic to websites versus LLM traffic to websites,
Yeah.
the LLM traffic is still much lower. And that's actually not a bad thing, because what that means is that people are staying in the LLM for the most part. But the ones that do come to your website are 50% more likely to close than an SEO lead that
Nice.
comes to your website. So yeah, it's really important for B2B companies to be trying to capture those leads in this way.
And what essentially it means is higher intent leads are
Mhm.
showing up in LLMs versus SEO.
Right. You successfully answered their question in the
Yeah.
LLM enough that they thought I should go look at this
Yeah.
company. So absolutely.
Great story. All right. Moving on to the second piece, go-to-market failure/pivot story.
Yeah, so I actually have a little personal anecdote to tell about that first. It's one of my favorite marketing stories. Years ago, I had a niece who was 3 years old, and she came to visit me for a few days. And I had made her a grilled cheese sandwich for lunch one day, and she's a very, very picky eater. So I sat her down at the table and I gave her grilled cheese sandwich that I knew she liked.
Yeah.
And she says to me, "Oh, I don't like grilled cheese sandwiches." And I said, "No, you love grilled cheese sandwiches." And no, I don't. And I said, "But it's bread and cheese and it's melted and it's fried. You love this." And she's
Yeah.
like, I don't love this." And so I was really confused, and I picked up the plate and I went back into the kitchen and I thought for a second. Then I opened up the sandwich to open face and gave it back to her. I said, "Okay, well, how about pizza?" And
Mm.
she ate the whole thing very happily. She was more than happy to have pizza. And
Yeah.
I tell that story because this is so much associated with what a pivot could look
Yeah.
like for companies, which is you may know your customer needs your solution or your prospect needs your solution, but if you don't speak to them in their language or tell them what they want to hear about your solution, and I don't mean making things up, I mean frame it in a way that they understand
Yeah.
and can be and resonate with, then your pivot's not going to be successful. So think
Yeah.
of that grilled cheese sandwich as your pivot, right?
Right.
Or the way that you need to talk about your solution differently.
Yeah.
And my favorite pivot story is that I was working with a company that already knew that they needed to pivot. It was a client. And they had a name that was very much associated with their old solution, which had been IoT devices that they were monitoring. And they were shifting to not providing IoT devices, but tracking of packages that would go through the supply chain.
Yeah.
And they needed a new name. And a lot of the names that we had come up with were very just sort of generic technology names and nothing that really resonated. And then I was sort of thinking through uh, a, uh, a friend of mine who was the CEO at another company that had a sporting name. And somehow I came to parkour. And for those that don't know what parkour is, you've seen it in movies and such. It's where people are doing flips and jumps and very elaborate ways to get from one point to another in a particular scene.
Yeah.
And so I ended up proposing that be the name. And I had all these great parkour videos to show them how it was relevant. There was one guy doing parkour in an airport. And they loved the idea, but then we had to go sell it to a bunch of the board and advisory teams and such. And in general, the people on the board and the advisory teams were, older than me by at least 10 years or so. And none of them had heard of parkour. And so I would do this presentation and then they'd say, "Well, I don't know that, I don't know what that means." And I said, "Well, ask your kids what they
Yeah.
think."
Yeah.
And to a person, they said, "Our kids said it was a really cool name." So, and we got a lot of attention as a result of that simple rebrand of the company. So,
Right.
because it really encapsulated what the company did from a technology perspective, but it was also speaking to a younger generation of people who um, uh, could resonate with what the name was trying to imply.
Yeah. Very cool. Great story there, Holly. I mean, it covers a lot of the go-to-market fundamentals and also goes back to your personal anecdote that you shared, which is how do you repackage an existing product that will resonate with that specific audience segment?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a essence of positioning, essence of messaging, branding, and all of these things. Of course, you need to still go out and test it out and see, and you run little experiments. But it goes back to how do you repackage an existing? Again, I think it's a great piece of advice, especially for technical founders or technology heavy background founders.
Hmm.
Is it's not about the product only. It's
Yes,
about how do you communicate your story, a brand story, and a transformation story to your market segment.
exactly right. Hmm.
Very cool. I know. So transitioning to more of the third piece of our segment here, you mentioned about AI and GTM. And a lot of people, a lot of listeners also we can sort of sense like what resources would you tap into when it comes to go to market. But specifically, if we were to peek under the hood of your day to day or week by week, what resources do you lean on for that intersection of AI and GTM? Like, how do you stay on top of things and how do you see what's real and what is
Mm,
not?
yeah. It is really tough to stay on top of things. And I tell actually when I open my class at Stanford, I say, by the way, I don't know everything.
Mm,
And there are things that you may know that I don't. Nobody knows everything, not
yeah.
even the Sam Altmans of the world. So bring your experiences to class and augment because we're going to learn together.
Hmm.
And I think that's really true. But um, we're really lucky to live in Silicon Valley where AI is practically a part of dinner conversation.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
house, it definitely is. And so there are a ton of networking events um, available here and or educational events or pitch events and all kinds of things. And so I do go to a lot of events.
Hmm.
Um, I get several newsletters from everything from incubators to startup communities to enterprise GTM and AI companies and other go-to-market experts. Um, and um, and I my whole day I really do live in AI tools. I'm either testing something new or using something to prepare for a demo
Yeah.
to the class or something like that. So um, yeah, I'm pretty much 24/7 AI right now
Yeah.
as a result.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to add on to what you just shared here, Holly, and for the listeners who are figuring out their way around AI, if you haven't done so, absolutely get hands on. I mean, it's very easy to get overwhelmed if you see the social media posts or the news or go to any events, everything is AI first, AI native, AI dash, AI this, AI that. But just it's important to shield away from that noise and go back to looking at your workflow and then testing out one or two AI tools. And that's about it. Start with one or two, right? And then see what's working and what is not, and then move on to the next one.
And what I would add to that is, yeah, but what you're fundamentally pointing to is you need to really understand what problem you're trying to solve
Yeah.
and what the successful outcome looks like.
Yeah.
And because you probably know that there's been studies on early AI, ML, and generative AI initiatives, like 80 to 90% have failed. I think in part because it was easy to get distracted about all the great things it could do, but not
Right.
necessarily focusing on how it was solving a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why there's this news and research that's been published. I believe it's by MIT or one of the
Hmm.
top tier institutes where they said like 80 to 90% of the AI projects didn't even see the end of daylight because it was all in a pilot phase or pilot
Yes.
mode rather than thinking about, yes, pilot is good, but then what are the gaps that needs to be addressed when we put an AI native or AI-enabled solution in production.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That is a big gap, and ones are coming.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Yeah, again, I think this is one more topic in our podcast follow-up. We'll definitely cover this at some point in time. Final question to you, Holly, is what advice would you give to your younger self if you were to turn back clock and go back to day one of your go-to-market / career journey, be it PricewaterhouseCoopers or at Oracle, Hyperion, or whichever? Like, what
Yeah.
advice would you give to your younger self?
I think, I thought a lot about this when you sort of gave me an idea of what we'd be talking about today. And I like to start my days with sort of a quote to set the tone for the day and set my mindset in a way that's going to be helpful. And one of my favorite quotes is, whatever you are meant to do it now, for the conditions are always impossible.
Mm,
And I think younger people will often feel as though they don't know enough or aren't experienced enough or um, have constraints in whatever their particular job is, that they may not sort of try to reach out and do something that they're passionate about. Maybe they ended up in the wrong career after university, which
yeah.
was certainly applicable to me. I got a lot of learning out of that, but it wasn't what I wanted to do full time or
Mm-hmm.
longer term.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been really too bad if I'd stayed there just because it seems safe.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I would suggest is, if you decide you want to switch careers or you want to go do a startup or something like that, then go do it, because there's never going to be an opportune moment where it's like,
Right.
oh, it's obvious that you should do that right now. You have to make the decision best for yourself.
Yeah.
So that's
Absolutely.
one of my driving quotes.
Yeah. Great piece of insight and advice there, right? There's never a perfect moment for anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gist. And yeah, if you're just in that ever prolonged or long lasting perfect moment, or thinking about, if you're lost in your thought process or overthinking, or if you're waiting for the perfect moment, it's never there. out
Right.
there.
Right. You have to create your own perfect
Yeah.
moments.
Absolutely. Great. Loved the conversation, Holly. A lot of insights, a lot of takeaways for the listeners. And again, good luck to you and the team at Rebel GTM, and good luck for your course at Stanford as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Hi there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the B2B Go-To-Market Leaders Podcast. I have all of the show notes and a full transcript on strativ.com. STRATYVE.com. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get a podcast. Leave a rating and a review. Your comments will help other go-to-market professionals find this podcast. Your comments will help other go-to-market professionals find this podcast.